Shout out to all the subscribers and the members here on the channel. Don't forget to like the video. My name is Reese Waters, and this is Street Politics. Well, y'all saw it.
Well, this is the race we have been watching. The projected winner, NBC News can project it as Ed Gallrein winning the Kentucky's 4th district. You see the numbers here right now, 54% with 60% of the vote in across that state.
MAGA, let me holler at you for a second. Let me holler at you for a second. I need to holler at you. I would like to quote something that Kevin McCarthy just said. No, it wasn't Marjorie, don't touch me there. And it wasn't even Matt Gaetz, don't start none, won't be none. He said Donald Trump is the most powerful Republican president on the Republican Party that we've ever seen. Now, we can argue whether or not that's true or that's accurate. That's not the point. The point is that it's possible. It's a conversation, right? You could proclaim that and you wouldn't be immediately dismissed. While he has historically low approval ratings, historically low approval ratings, y'all are sitting here moving heaven and earth, undoing decades-old civil rights legislation because of the blue wave you see over the horizon in November. While you follow a man who can't crack 40% approval. Where they do that at? Where they do that at? And then wondering how you wound up here. It's like when the Medea movies first came out, I went and saw them. It reminded me of my family. But eventually, at some point, she went to jail. She goes camping. Medea's Halloween. At some point, you got to get off the train. You see where this train is going. At some point, you got to get off the train. Everybody had to get off the train. People had to get off the train on the Fast and Furious movies. People had to get off the train on the Scream movies. How long y'all want to follow this train, MAGA? How long y'all want to follow this train? And for the people of Kentucky, you, at least the people of that district, have a representative, if he's elected, right? You have a representative on the Republican side of the aisle who's going in with no agency whatsoever. He's completely compromised out the gate. Out the gates. They went and found a warm body to run who has no freedom to do anything outside of Trump's bidding. Guess who else don't have representation? It ain't just the black folks. Now it's y'all. Now it's y'all. Guess who else don't have representation? You don't. Because you didn't get off the train. That's right. That's right. And, perhaps this was to be expected from a voting population that gave us Mitch McConnell year after. Y'all elected Mitch McConnell until he started freezing and glitching on camera. Y'all still didn't see fit to go tell this man to sit down somewhere. I should have known. I should have known. There's a very specific reason why I was intrigued with this particular race and why I decided I wanted to talk about it. And you know why? Is because either one or two things was going to happen. one of two things. Either we were going to see a public GOP rebuke of Donald Trump, or we were going to have MAGA completely consumed by the swamp that they so hate.
Miriam Adelson is spending whatever it takes to take the seat away from him because he committed the crime of describing how things actually work in the U.S. Congress. Anyone who gets the idea that maybe I'll get to Congress and tell the truth about how things actually work, they'll be crushed. If they are successful in doing this, crushing a man, defaming a man, slandering a man, attacking his family, purely for the crime of telling the truth about them, about how they operate, about the nature of the Epstein class, then you have to wonder, why are we voting in the first place? What is the point of all of this? Is there a reason to participate in the process? If in the end some Israeli casino lady can come in and just determine the outcome, that's not democracy. It's just straight up teeth-bared oligarchy. It's shut up and obey. And so while we can, it's probably worth doing whatever it takes within the bounds of the law to prevent that from happening. Because crushing Thomas Massie for the crime of telling the truth is itself a moral crime. And yet in Washington, the only people who are punished are those who told the truth. And at some point that has to stop, or the system itself lacks all legitimacy.
You allowed all this outside money to come in and purchase a primary seat. The most expensive that we've seen. Y'all allowed that. You know, the drain the swamp MAGAs had all this outside money come in and purchase their primary seat. See, there was really no win in this for you, MAGA. There really was no, at least as I saw it, right? From my perspective, either I was going to celebrate Trump having to look at his empty, dead hands at the end of the night, or the fact that you have continued to stay on this train. How long y'all want to ride it? 35%? Y'all want to hit 30? Let's talk about what this means, right? Let's talk about what exactly this means. The rule of law was mentioned, and we know about the rule of law, do we not? We know about the rule of law. Had Pete Hegseth parachuting in as a private citizen, complete violation of the Hatch Act, but y'all don't care about that. Y'all don't care about that, do you?
It's an honor to be here with all of you. I have to say up front for the lawyers that I'm here in my personal capacity as a private citizen, a fellow American, and a fellow combat veteran, here to support Navy SEAL Ed Galrine.
Y'all don't care about that. I wonder what was it about his appearance that convinced Pete Hegseth that he was a private citizen in that moment? Is he kind of, is it kind of like a Superman thing? Where he has his glasses on, where he doesn't have his glasses on with Pete, is whether he took a shot of schnapps or not. He took one to the head, so he a private citizen now. That's what now either I know y'all don't care about the rule of law. But let's talk about what this means.
So, Congressman, in the last 2 weeks, you repeated AOC's talking points on Venezuela, and Jasmine Crockett has retweeted you. When will you change your party affiliation to Democrat?
I thought you knew. I vote with Republicans 91% of the time. And the 9% I don't, they're taking up for pedophiles, starting another war, or bankrupting our country.
As Thomas Massie said himself prior to this election, quote, I vote with Republicans 91% of the time, and the 9% I don't, they're taken up for pedophiles, starting another war, or bankrupting our country. Let's deconstruct MAGA. Was it that got Thomas Massie on the wrong side of Donald Trump? What was it that got Thomas Massie on the wrong side of Donald Trump? I believe it was the Epstein file, was it not? I believe it was the Epstein files that created the initial schism between him and Trump that continued when it came to the war in Iran. So I would love to ask what that means for y'all. Considering those were the sole issues that moved you to pack up Thomas Massie, what does that mean for y'all? Exactly what flag would you be carrying in a world where you've taken up that stance? That's what y'all did. That's exactly what y'all did. Huh, a White House app. Does that put me on some kind of registry? What does that say? White House app found tracking users' exact location every 4.5 minutes via third-party server. What? 4.5 minutes? Were they tracking every time I lose my keys? Y'all know I'm of age. Okay, I get it now. I get it. So no wonder y'all do nothing when our data is under siege. We worried and y'all like, you know what? That's a great idea. We should be in that business. Let me find out data brokers at them dog-faced shutdown parties. The same people who take all our information and sell it to the highest bidder. Because the bill that would have required those same brokers to get our consent before selling our information is circling the drain like this Congress. And this is where today's sponsor, Aura, comes in. Data brokers do have to remove your private information if you tell them, but of course they make it incredibly difficult to do, you know, like everything in America these days. But Aura does the hard work for you, constantly scanning the dark web and submitting opt-outs on your behalf. Give Aura a few weeks and you'll stop seeing your information on these sketchy sites when you search yourself, giving you more time to work and save up money to pay down that gas loan. Their app includes other features like dark web monitoring, fraud alerts, a VPN, and more. A great deal if you want to be more private and protected online. You can go to my link, aura.com/Reese Waters to try 14 days for free. Again, that's aura.com/Reese Waters for 14 free days. Enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your personal information off these data broker sites automatically. Ooh, you know what? I'm gonna get this White House app instead. Oh, wait, no, that's not for us. That is definitely not for us. Y'all sat there, y'all watched a preacher. Y'all watch a preacher go up on the National Mall and say it took 2 centuries for God to raise up a man who would complete the ballroom.
It's hard to believe that it would take 2 centuries for the Lord to raise up a great man to bring that ballroom finally to stand.
Y'all said, y'all watched it. Y'all watched a preacher get up there and say, I don't know why it took God 2 centuries to raise up a man to complete the ballroom, and decided that's the way you wanted. You know? You know? That's nasty work, man. That's nasty work. They was out here talking about drain the swamp. Mike Johnson talked about we need to sell stocks to feed our families. Out here sounding like Latrell Sprewell.
Well, look, you know, the salary of Congress has been frozen since 2009. You know, when you adjust for inflation, a member of Congress today is making 31% less than they made in that year. It goes down every year. And over time, if you stay on this trajectory, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice to run for Congress. I mean, it's just people just make a reasonable decision as a family on whether or not they can come and move to Washington, have a residence here, a residence at home, and do all the things that are required. So the counter argument is, and I have some sympathy, look, at least let them like engage in some stock trading so that they can continue to, take care of their family.
He out here sounding like Latrell Sprewell. Why you need I gotta feed my family. Unless you got Elon Musk family tree, that ain't the answer. That ain't the answer. Talk about some drain the swamp. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. But let's go here with it, right? Let's go here with it. In your efforts to appease Trump, going into a midterms where the winds have been blowing left for a full calendar year, and you got people singing "How Low Can You Go" by Ludacris every time we look at his approval ratings. How does that look for you? Huh? How does that look for you? Here's a better question. At this point in time, when we have seen him come out and say, I don't think about America's finances, and surely his behavior has reflected that, has it not? When we sat here and had him have little to no disregard for American life, sending troops overseas with no end in sight, when we seen him to have little to no disregard for American institutions, here's my question, MAGA. How much do you think he cares about you at this point in time? How much do you think he cares about you at this point in time? Because this is the thing. When I look at Donald Trump, and when a lot of us look at Donald Trump, we see a man that is purely self-interested. A man who would snub his own daughter in public. Tiffany, I can't let it go. Tiffany, I can't let it go. A man who would put out a Mother's Day post without mentioning his wife or his mother. That's what we see, right? That's what we see. But here's the thing. You can decide that you know better because you want to own the libs and we don't want these lefties telling us what to do. Well, now you need the egotistical narcissist not to behave like an egotistical narcissist. Hey, we've all had relationships that were ill-advised. We've all picked somebody and people were like, he seemed a little clingy. He seemed a little clingy. He was like, nah, he loved me. He loved me. Well, now you got to explain away why he in the bushes outside it worked. You decided you wanted to ignore good advice. Now look at you. Trump's vendettas deliver, but at what cost to the GOP? President Donald Trump is escalating his retribution drive after felling yet another Republican critic in a campaign that he finds deeply satisfying, but that comes with widening political risks for his party. Trump destroyed the re-election hopes of Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy in the state's GOP primary on Saturday, and of course on Monday, will send Pete Hegseth to Kentucky as part of the effort to doom Thomas Massie, which we just saw. Trump also this weekend threatened to withdraw his endorsement of GOP Rep. Lauren Boebert of Colorado after she campaigned for Massie. Cassidy's defeat 5 years after he voted to convict Trump in a Senate impeachment trial over the January 6th Capitol riot lengthens the list of GOP grandees, including Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney, already elbowed out of top party positions for standing up to the strongman president. Now, I'm just going to have to stop us right here. When it came to Bill Cassidy, this is a man who was a doctor, a straight physician, who believes in science, who still rubber stamped RFK Jr. and all the rest of the nominees that Trump sent on through. He's voted with Trump this entire time. Their sole issue was that he voted to impeach. So here's my question, MAGA, because y'all love to talk about living free. Y'all love to talk about all the freedoms you enjoy. What freedoms? What freedoms? Huh? What freedoms? What you talking about? He just done thrown Thomas Massie in the trash. He threw Bill Cassidy in the trash. You just mentioned Liz Cheney and people of that ilk. We've seen him throw Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, Marjorie Taylor Greene. What freedom, MAGA? Huh? What freedom? You have boxed yourself into a place where you can't even express yourself. Not personally and not via your representative, because he compromised. What we doing, MAGA? What we doing? And then this is the great part about it too. And I mentioned this when it came to Indiana, right? Because when it came to the Indiana state senators who didn't want to gerrymander, and Trump got in his feelings and said he was going to primary the state senators because, you know, he pays so much attention to intrastate politics in Indiana. So, of course, he should know who should represent y'all, right? Well, if the Republicans in Indiana felt like it was a bad idea for them to gerrymander the state, the Republicans, and Trump goes in and replaces those representatives with people even further out on the limb than he was, how does that bode for a general election? How does that bode? You know, how does that play for a general election? Again, I want to go back to the question that I just asked a bit ago. How much you think he cares about you at this point in time from everything that you've seen? Huh? How much you think he cares about the party? How much you think he cares about the GOP? This man won't even give y'all a clean secession plan. Right? We need the narcissist to not act like a narcissist. Because we wanted to ignore good advice and own the libs. Now that's your man's. Now you stuck with it. Trump's hardball Louisiana play was another stunning display of his power over his own party and his capacity to leverage the support of his most committed supporters, even as a second-term president who's never been more unpopular nationwide. This political superpower explains why the president has not emulated previous unpopular commanders-in-chief in losing the capacity to shape domestic politics. Earlier this month, Trump toppled a handful of state lawmakers in Indiana who balked at his demands to redraw congressional maps. But Trump's pursuit of his political vendettas and a presidency increasingly revolving around personal goals, expensive legacy projects, and tin-eared economic messaging is going to cause a headache for the GOP. Trump has already been a unique political figure. He built a movement that made him president twice through turning his own fixations, such as immigration, tariffs, and NATO spending, into policy goals. But his latest antics come as Republicans deal with the early fallout of his turbulent second term ahead of difficult midterm elections. While he's acting on his own goals, Trump isn't focusing on issues that are arguably more vital to the country, like ending his war in Iran and the conflict's economic fallout, which is making an already stark affordability crisis much worse. And I would like to offer, as much as I know, and I'm sure most of the people watching know how little he cares about any of those things that afflict the American people. He said it. He talked about how little he cared. Affordability was a hoax, right? I just like to offer that in the midst of this war, in the midst of this unending inflation, right? He finds the time to campaign against state lawmakers in Indiana and get personally invested in a House race in Kentucky. And in both instances, giving you less electable candidates for a general election. That's what y'all did. And by the way, he wasn't done with that because he just endorsed Ken Paxton today as well. He just endorsed Ken Paxton today as well. Yeah, that Ken Paxton, impeached by his own party for bribery and corruption, said the Uvalde school shooting was God's plan and gave a child abuser only a 60-day jail sentence. And let's also, of course, remember, on a personal level, his wife filed for divorce on biblical grounds, accusing him of adultery. And despite all that, Trump described him as highly respected. Wait, hey, highly respected. Highly respected. That's who he gave y'all for the general. Because he had more fealty to Trump. That's who he gave y'all for the general. The only thing that I could possibly respect about Ken Paxton, if his wife is telling the truth and he was out here running the streets, I have to give him some credit because I didn't know he had that in him. I look at Ken Paxton and I'm like, ain't no way. If he found anybody that's willing to take him in at night, he'll never let him go. That's crazy. You know what I mean? If Ken Paxton was running the streets, that's wild. I will say that. Just as we have seen in Indiana, just as we've seen in Kentucky, just as we've seen in Texas, the best interests of Donald Trump don't necessarily align with the best interests of his party. And as long as the people that make up his voter base continue to do his bidding, well, they're just going to keep walking off that cliff now, won't they? There's been a lot of conversation about whether or not Texas is actually winnable. Well, it certainly got a lot more winnable now, didn't it? It certainly did. And if you think he's finished, well, how do you think he's going to react to seeing that Thomas Massie lost his race today? He's not done. No, he's got more damage that he's ready, willing, and able to do. Yeah. You know, Kentucky, y'all had it on your racket. I can't do it for you. We can't do it for you. You sitting here with no voice and no representation. You know? Y'all might as well go on with the black folk. Y'all might as well go on with the black folks of the South, because y'all every bit as disenfranchised as the black folk. And you lucky, Kentucky, they didn't mention y'all in that SEC boycott. Y'all lucky. They mentioned, you know, Georgia and Alabama, some of the rest of it. Kentucky, y'all been flying underneath the radar. Y'all better be careful. Y'all better be careful. Or maybe y'all go wait in them lines, y'all go start protesting your lack of voice, you might be able to get some recruits out of there. That's the only thing I could offer to you right now. But the rest of the South feels duty bound to find out. And so it is. All was not lost. All was not lost. We still have Daniel Cameron. Daniel Cameron race been over for hours.
Flashback.
Wow. It's 7:16. He didn't even get to dinner. They not even finished with dinner yet. Daniel Cameron, you did all of that. You did all of that. Throwing black people under the bus, throwing the people of Louisville under the bus, throwing Breonna Taylor and her people under the bus. You did all of that. And you couldn't make it to dinner time, dog. You couldn't even make it to prime time. They still got Family Feud on. They got game shows on, man. They doing news magazine shows. How you get packed up with 8% of the vote in? Do you know how bad it gotta be for you to get packed up with 8% of the vote in? They basically saw 3 carloads of people all vote for Barr, and they were like, it's over. They saw it was one large family. They came down and they all voted for Barr, and they just started packing up Daniel Cameron stuff. They said, hey, let's beat traffic. Let's beat traffic. All right. Like we used to do when my parents would take us to Wizards games. They were like, hey, they go down 20. We leaving. I ain't waiting in no traffic after no blowout. All right. Something got to give. Something got to give. We going to see a good competitive game or win, or I'm going to be home early. We not doing both. Daniel Cameron, that's bad. That's bad. Yeah. Got you out here looking like the Atlanta Hawks. That's how bad it was. That's how bad it was. You out here looking like the Atlanta Hawks. You was down 50. Just because they keep making Earnest movies didn't mean people kept watching them straight to DVD. Means it's time to get off the train. Yeah, Earnest was the Medea of our childhood. Yeah, it was it. Earnest was the. I was surprised they never had a crossover. I was surprised they never had a. It wasn't. I loved Earnest. I did love her. I'll be honest. I was an Earnest fan. I'll be honest. It was the right age for me.